but the people who are supposed to be adequately informed of the same have no information thereof. So public participation has to both be real in the sense of quantity and quality. I believe that answers Osumba. And a similar clusters of the same is the Algoraya case, which I'll share on the chat. Thank you.
Please share the case also on the chat, the one you've just stated. Collins, is your question answered?
Sufficiently. Thank you, Rogers.
Thank you for asking the question. Who has another question or something to add? Anyone? We have 12 minutes to the end of the meeting. I will choose people to speak. Hiya. Anyone with something? Rogers, you didn't have anything to say? You had raised your hand.
That's just the point I felt that had been missed, the story of the threshold. What constitutes of public participation? It's all about of it being real in terms of quantity and quality. And I love that you said that it has to come prior to that. If you could share any case law on that. And also, I feel it's proper to look at the Public Procurement Bill 2018, which will now be the governing framework for the public participation in Kenya. I've not yet had a look at it. Maybe I could have shared what I know about it.
Does it talk about, okay, remember here we're talking about the projects, not the legislative aspects, whereby, okay, when a bill, what is it called? When a law is being passed, is it a law or whatever, the public have to be involved. I think they are different. When it comes to projects, it's different from the participation when it comes to the bills or the acts of parliament, the one Collins was alluding to. I don't know.
But public participation is a principle. So therefore, it will cut across most of the state activities, such as procurement of projects and also matters to do with the bill. Maybe I could share the screen and show you some of the guiding principles.
To share your screen.
I hope you can see.
Okay.
So this is the Public Participation Bill 2018. And so these are some of the guiding principles. Firstly, that the public communities and organizations that are affected by the decision have a right to be consulted. Therefore, when any state organ claims that they did adequate public participation, they have to prove that they were able to inform the public and the communities that are directly affected by this decision. Secondly, provision of effective mechanisms for the involvement of the public. In this case, with the corona, I think the teams will be adequate platforms for that. If it was before, I think barazas could have been had. Then the third one is participants have equitable access to information. So therefore, the right of access to information is very important in this regard, because if they do not know, as Osumba Collins was saying, they do not know what they are coming to discuss, you cannot call that effective. And like I mentioned in the Robert Zakuru case, it has to be quality public participation. You cannot call it quality when the participants do not have equitable access to the information. The fourth one is the public views must be taken into consideration in the decision making, which means it cannot come after the project has been enacted. It has to come prior to it. The fifth one, development of appropriate feedback mechanisms, adherence to national values of Article 10, adherence to the principles of leadership and integrity, adherence to the principles of public participation as may be prescribed by any written law. And the last one is promotion of sustainable decisions, recognizing the needs and the interests of all participants, including the decision makers. So therefore, in every decision, it has to be sustainable in the sense that it has to be cost effective. So I think cost is also another issue which I heard you mentioned, Angie. It has to be taken into regard. I believe that's all.
Thank you, Rogers, for your elaborate discussion. Anyone with something to say? We have 8 minutes before the close of the meeting. Christine, then Muranda Nyakoa. Christine?
Okay, hi.
Hi, Christine.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, so since you are the guru in the topic, you did the research. Did you have any specific recommendation apart from just recommending that public participation should be implemented? Because in the case of a law, the effect will be nullifying that law. But in case of a project, I think it will be waste. I don't think it's be reasonable to do away with that project. So did you have any specific recommendation?
With regard, thank you for the question. Yes, I had 6 recommendations, but now you see my project was coming after, my dissertation was coming after the fact, yani after the project has already been put in place. So I couldn't, there's no way I would intervene, but I said introduce mandatory requirements for public access to EIA reports by affected groups, academic institutes, strengthen the integrated coordination between NEMA and relevant sectoral authorities. Then I talked about effective public participation. Then mitigation strategies should be considered. Then, yeah, I didn't really speak, when, I don't know, I think I was scared because maybe they can come for me, but anyway, they can't come for me. But I think maybe I was scared to be very vocal about having the SGR pass through the Nairobi National Park, and there were cases that were pending in court. I don't know, I didn't look at whether they were finalized, but yeah, so I wasn't very specific. I think it's an oversight on my end, but maybe you can write something. You can write something, maybe concerning the Nairobi Expressway, because it's something that is current. And we see whether, I don't know if they'll ever look at our contributions, but yeah, thank you. I can share the paper with you so that you can see. Thank you for that question. Next was Muranda Nyakoa.
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
I've always believed in one thing, that public participation suffers a lot of challenges, but I'll only mention one. When it comes to the issue of lack of information in relation to things like public policy, plans, budgets, the programs and services, such information, I've always tried to imagine how it's implemented in the ground, because, okay, the law provides for information to be given in public, but when it comes to implementation, I've always felt like it's not that easy for a majority of the public to obtain relevant information and also maybe understand. Maybe they can as well obtain it, but when it comes to maybe comprehension and understanding, who does the government allocate, or who is supposed to teach these people when it comes to comprehension of such information? And I'll go to the next thing. Yash Falgai, I'm sorry I did not quote where he said this, but he did define public participation as a vision of democracy in which citizens are active in public affairs, promoting their notion of justice and good policies, and engaging in dialogues with the legislature and the executive, and in these ways enhancing public deliberation and democracy. So when you look at that definition, it's like implementing that on the ground. Some things have just been put in the essence of the black written words of the law, but when it comes to implementation in the ground, like active participation in public affairs, and it is not happening the way it's supposed to be. And then on my last point, the County Government Act of 2012, in particular, Section 87A, provides for timely access to information, data, documents, and any other relevant information related to policy formulation and implementation. Okay, I believe the County Government the devolution was brought so that such issues can be brought closer to the people, maybe to achieve issues like public participation, which is a good thing, but still, I believe there are gaps. And I'm sorry I came to your presentation late, so I don't know if you addressed this issue of implementation per se, but when you, right now you've just answered a question and you've read part of your recommendation, and I believe it answered part of what I've been thinking. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your contribution, your valid contribution. You talked about implementation. I don't know, you remember when we go to vote in elections, we cede our power to part of our sovereignty to the people, the MPs. So the MPs are there to represent us. So I don't know if that qualifies as public participation. No, I don't think it does. But okay, my point is, when you go to the ballot box to vote, you are electing leaders who are going to represent you. So you've ceded part of your sovereignty. So those leaders will represent you the best way they know how. I don't know. But yeah, you've raised such an important issue about implementation. There is that, what should I call it? There is that, I don't know, what's the zimepotea? Okay, Rogers, and then Muranda, and then we close. We have 1 minute. Rogers?
So I just wanted to put on what Muranda had talked about, the issue of implementation. On the issue of implementing public participation, you have to recognize that you have to give the community affected by the decision adequate information, and not just adequate information, because this follows substance more than form. To ensure that this community or this discussed.
The problem, sorry. Okay, Rogers, finish.
I'm done. I was talking about substance rather than form, whereby they have to conduct, not just giving the information to the public, but they have to conduct civic education to ensure that the public understands the information given to them and the consequences thereof.
Thank you, Rogers. Kadhambi, then we go to Nyakoa, Muranda. Kadhambi?
Okay, good evening, Angie.
Good evening.
I just wanted to ask a question. What is the proper procedure now for instituting this popular initiative now, in accordance to the law? Kindly.
Thank you for your question. You're talking about the BBI. So I think it's elaborated in, is it 255 to 257 of the Constitution? It talks about the popular initiative. But Kadhambi, I was very keen not to talk about BBI. I just wanted public participation with regards to government projects. I have not talked about BBI. BBI is a different ballgame together. I have not talked about it. I don't know who can answer, Kadhambi. I don't know, Mamba. That is a constitutional law 101. I don't know who can help. Yes,
I think in the interest of time, some of us want to watch Ruto, but in the interest of time, there is a very good discussion we can have next weekend and maybe start early so that we also watch news.
Yes, we need to end. So, Muranda, your final thoughts, then we end. News imefika.
So thank you, Akili. I want to thank Rogers. He has answered my question on sufficient information and public, and alisema something to do with civic education. Yeah. Then back to you, the last thing you mentioned, that delegated legislation is part of public participation. But if you look at Yashpal Guy's definition, public participation involves citizens being active in public affairs. So it trickles down to the common mwananchi, not just the delegated legislation up there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So with that, thank you everyone for joining the meeting. Thank you for coming. I will end the recording. I'll stop the recording right here. Stop recording.